of the Global Charter for Compassion. And I'm on the Gold Coast where the sun is just rising. So I'd like to say good morning, but I know that many people are meeting from different parts of the world, including our special guest, Reverend Steve, and Elaine Christine, our host. So wherever you are and whatever time of day it is, it's good to be present with you and to share this moment. Some of you may or may not be familiar with the work of the Global Charter for Compassion, but we've put in the chat box now the link to the Global Charter's website. The Charter for Compassion is a global aspiration for a more compassionate world. It was dreamed by Karen Armstrong, a religious writer, more than 10 years ago. And around 2 million people throughout the world in those 10 years have signed the Charter for Compassion and become a part of a movement because compassion is not just an aspiration, but it's something that engages the whole of ourselves in responding to the suffering of others. And 4,000 organisations have partnered the work of the Charter. We have 450 compassionate cities throughout the world who are trying to break that down to respond to suffering in their own cities. And the city of Gold Coast, where I am in Queensland in Australia, is one of those cities. So this invitation today is to be a part of a global movement that responds to the naturally arising motivation of compassion and to give expression to some of the many ways that happens. Within the Charter and within our compassionate cities, we have sectors, and that means that people can find a place within a particular sector and also to work across sectors to come up with creative solutions to the suffering that we experience in the world. And so the religion, spirituality and interfaith sector is one of our global and city charter sectors. And Dr. Elaine Christine, our host this morning, leads the RSI sector, and I am one of its members. In a moment, I'm going to introduce you to Elaine, who will then introduce our special guest for this morning. But as is our custom here in Australia and through the work of the Charter, we're just going to take a moment to pause, to become present to ourselves, to each other in this moment, to find the stillness and transcendence that locates us not only in this unique moment in time and in our bodies, but is transcendent in connecting us with our ancestors, with the land and its people. Indeed, that connects us with all people in all times, in all places. And so we open ourselves to the unique blessing of this moment and the sacred encounter that is unfolding as we share this moment together. And we are thankful. Thank you. Well, it's my very great privilege. You can see navigating the light, the sunlight streaming in. But a woman that doesn't need any artificial lighting, at least, is our host, Dr. Elaine Christine, who leads the religion, spirituality and interfaith sector. She's the author of the Peace Prophecy Trilogy and the host of the annual World Peace Tele-Summit. My good friend, a sister in this journey, and host for this morning, Dr. Elaine Christine.
Thank you, Terry. And you are a blessing to this group and to the world that's tuning in, and on the replay, many more. So Terry is not only a member of this RSI sector at the Charter for Compassion, he's also a facilitator for the Gold Coast, and he's on the Australian Compassion Council. So we are very privileged to have Terry, and he'll be the host next month for our webinar series. We're looking forward to that. So thank you, Terry, so much for being here. I have lit a candle, and I would like to present that to you. We do create sacred space here. So this is a very beautiful candle with a rose on it, white rose. And so just know that that is for all the people who are suffering for the global coronavirus pandemic. Some have lost jobs. Some have lost their entire business and life savings. Some have lost their lives. You may know someone who is sick, and certainly we have many prayers to go out on your behalf. Now and in the future, we continue to keep everyone in our hearts and in our prayers. And this is a time where it's a bit of a roller coaster, where we think we're getting better and then we realize we're not. So it is a good time for a great book, and that is by the special guest that I will introduce in a moment. I'd like to tell you about his book, Reboot to Interfaith. Basically, I just had to reboot my computer before this webinar, and so I invite everyone to reboot your own computer, your own mindset about who your neighbor is, who the prayers are for. I do believe we're all in this together, and it's a very interesting date today. It is July 15th, 2020. So I'm sure in hindsight, we'll look back on this as a very special day. It does spell God transliterated. The July is 7, and that's the G in our English alphabet. And then O is the 15th position, and D, you add 2 and 2. So we feel like God is here with us. And even though there are many faiths, or you can call it what you want, but it is the creator of all of us and this beautiful world that we do live in. So with that, let's dive into Reboot to Interfaith by our special guest, Reverend Dr. Stephen Albert, Director of the World Interfaith Network. Welcome, Reverend Steve.
Thank you so much, Elaine. I really appreciate being honored this way. The work that you do and the things that are accomplished through your organization are just tremendous. And we have become a part of that, as you know, and whenever we can bring things together and do things together, that would be an honor for us.
Well, it is an honor to have you here today. And you know, they say that people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. So to kick off our conversation with a very special person in your life, your wife, Abigail. Tell us about your love story.
Oh boy. I truly believe that things happen for a reason, as most people do, and that my wife and I are both from New Thought backgrounds. Mine is Unity, hers was religious science. And in that, we believe that things happen and you are brought together when you're supposed to be together. And we were at a conference, both of us from different areas of California. We came to the first Association of Global New Thought conference, and we were sitting in an auditorium with about 1,200 people in circles of 8 and 10. And my wife came in, my wife-to-be, came in about 1 minute late. The lights were starting to dim, and the person at the door said, "Go in there and just find a seat." Well, she could only find one seat, and that was right next to me, and we've been together for 21 years. Supposed to be.
I love that story. I love that story. We'll be sure to give Abigail our best. I know that you really are a dynamic duo, and I'm sure that she in many ways. Now, on to the book. Give us a little backstory about how that came together, because you've done other books as well, but why was it time? And it just converged on the global stage, really just as the coronavirus was asking us all to reboot to our faith. So tell us about that. What kind of guidance were you getting?
Well, before I get into that, let me ask the audience, anybody who's listening, to do one thing. Think about something that makes you very, very happy. It could be a food, it could be a person, it could be going to an amusement park, it could be going to the beach or out in nature, whatever it is. Think about that one thing that makes you happy and feel it as we're talking. In 2005, Abigail and I had our New Thought Church, and we were taken by an article in the paper from the Baha'is. They were doing their World Peace Day. Abigail and I looked at each other and said, "What's a Baha'i?" So we thought we'd gather, and we met them, and the most wonderful, caring people. And then they brought together a conference, probably about 100 people the first year, with leaders from different faiths to talk to one another and tell us about your faith. Well, we became so enamored with it. We loved being with these people. And then the following year, in 2006, we said, we need to continue this. And that's when we formed the Poway Interfaith team, which was made up at that time with 8 different faith groups. And they came together to put together as many things for the public as possible, to let them feel the nice, beautiful feelings that we were starting to feel. You know, what makes you happy? Well, for 8 weeks, we put on Interfaith Summer Nights. And that was 8 weeks of a different faith representative telling us about their faith. And they started to talk, and they started to give us background. And Abigail's looking at me, and I'm looking at her, and she's poking me, and well, wait a minute, he's a Buddhist. I believe that. Am I Buddhist? Same thing. He's Muslim, he's Jewish, he's on and on. That inspired me so much that I wanted to find out how similar it was to the New Thought faith that we belong to. So I put together, it took me 1.5 years to do it, the Interfaith Manual that compares 12 different faiths, what each one believes about particular 44 different areas of living. So you look up loving or love, and it tells you what all 12 believe about love. It gives you all, you name it, environment, what all 12 believe about the environment. To the point where I started getting so into and loving and making me happy about interfaith that it was growing with people around me. And I said, you know, it's a real shame that it's only happening here in Poway, California. Then we found out about the North American Interfaith Network that puts together the NAIN conference every year, a Connect conference. It was happening in San Francisco, and we said, okay, let's drive up. We drove there, and would you believe that there were over 100 people from all different faiths coming together for 3 days, having a wonderful time, different foods, wow. I mean, we left San Francisco saying, I don't know that it could get any better than this. And then we were told about the Parliament of World Religions, which happened to be the next year in Melbourne, Australia. Well, Abigail and I have always wanted to travel into Australia. And we said, yeah, let's go see what this is like. Well, would you believe 8,000 people showed up? 8,000 people from 80 countries all over the world. What made me happy was exploding around me. It just couldn't get any better than this. And so when we got home, we said, we have to find out how to expand. We became a compassionate city in 2014. And then we decided to put on our own interfaith conference. It would be a named conference, but we needed to do more. And so we put on a 5-day conference that attracted 250 people from 20 different faiths for 5 days. And they interacted with one another, and they loved one another, and they ate with one another. We took bus trips. It was so much energy that I could hardly stand it. Now, I have a Bible phrase from James 4:2 that many of your people know. It's, you have not because you ask not. You have not because you ask not. And as you'll find out about me, I'm the kind of person that asks. If I want something, I ask. So right before this conference happened in 2017, I went to all the mayors in the San Diego County region. And I said, would you honor each and every person of any faith in your city? And almost all of the mayors said yes. And that became the first Interfaith Awareness Week. Well, like I said, the conference was incredible. They're still talking about it. And the conference ended, and I said, what if it went beyond San Diego? What if it went to California? And so here I am again. You ask not because you have not because you ask not. I said, what if I call the governor? And a few weeks later, the governor of California, God bless him, said we would honor Interfaith Awareness Week every year as a celebration in California. Well, today we have become a cooperation circle with URI, United Religions Initiative, for those who do not know. And all the people in 100 countries are now celebrating every year as Interfaith Awareness Week. So the one thing I left out is that in 2003, I had a major stroke. It paralyzed the entire left side of my body. And I knew that I was going to get well. I knew that God loved me as he loves every other person that exists, and I was going to get better. Well, it took me almost a year before I was back doing all the work, but I wrote the first book then that was called Reboot. How do I reboot myself through a tough time? And that was the book that emphasized you can do it. I don't care if you're going through a divorce. I don't care if you're going through a bankruptcy. I don't care if your job change. I don't care if you're going through a coronavirus pandemic. Worldwide, we can get through this. And by knowing we can get through it, we experience it as a growth experience. It's an awakening for each one of us to become better in ourselves, better with other people, better in our families, in our jobs, in everything that we do. And this is an opportunity now for all of us to reboot and become the best we can be. In the book, I cover a variety of things, mostly what the different faiths believe about different things, including the Golden Rule. And as you're probably aware, there's the Golden Rule in almost every holy book that exists on earth. And yet the Golden Rule has a fallacy. It says that I should treat you the way I want to be treated. I call out that fallacy in terms of you may not want to be hugged when I first meet you the way my faith says, please, let's hug each other. So I change it to the Platinum Rule that says, I honor you and I treat you the way you want to be treated, not the way I want to be treated. And that makes a whole different dynamic. So every time I meet people, the first thing I do is I put my hand on my chest and I greet them. Namaste. I'm open to what they want. And as Abigail will tell you, we have many, many imam friends that, you know, they look and they see us and they walk right up to her and give her a big hug. Because the namaste is fine when you're meeting a stranger, but when you become family, here's the secret, when you are happy with people, when you are enjoying having a meal with people, when you are open to learning about their rituals and their excitement and what makes you happy, that's when things change. And I love being part of this human family that has so many wonderful things in it, so many people that care and are compassionate and loving and do their best to go out of their way to make sure that everybody else around them is doing well. Those first responders, what can you say? And then there's the people behind the first responders that are opening the buildings and mopping the floors and making sure that everything exists so that the first responders can do their work. Compassionate, loving, absolutely, absolutely. So every now and then I get somebody who says to me, Interfaith, wait a minute. You don't expect me to leave my religion, do you, and become an interfaith? And that is a concept that I make sure in the book is mentioned. We do not want you to leave your religion. We do not want you to leave your faith. We want to know what you believe about your faith. Bring it to us so we can get as excited about you as you are about your faith. Now, also be open to letting me tell you about my faith. And we all of a sudden begin a conversation. There's a back and forth. And what I love is to sit down with people that I've just met and have a meal with them. Have a meal. Talk about your kids. Talk about your growing up. Oh, I had a third grade teacher that I never liked. I had a third grade teacher that I never liked. Wait a minute, we're from different countries. How could that be? Who? And then I show them the picture of the donuts and, well, everybody likes to have fun. Everybody likes to be happy. Everybody loves to see the expression on a child's face when you give them a treat, when you smile at them, and when you can become part of who they are. And the child looks back and goes, I like you. And that's what Reboot to Interfaith is about. is finding ways to talk with one another, communicate with one another, understand what turns people off. You do not go to a stranger who is a senior in the Catholic Church, in the Jewish synagogue, in the Muslim temple. You do not go, and if you're from the opposite sex, and go up and hug them. In fact, you don't even extend your hand. You show them reverence. God bless you. Namaste. Nice to meet you. And when it's the right time, they may open up even more. That's covered in the book. It's to realize that we do things and don't even know how we're offending people. Look what's happened in America now, where people are just realizing that they grew up in a way that offended people of color, people of who were going through a whole different understanding of what life was like based on how others perceive them. And once we become understanding of one another, then all the other stuff blows away. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter the color of your skin, the clothing you wear, the fact that you speak differently. Doesn't matter. What counts is that you're a good person, that you're there to help others. You're there to be compassionate. You're there to be loving. You're there to make a difference with people. And that's what I try to do with my life.
Well, we appreciate that you bringing up the golden rule, because as you know, the Charter for Compassion is kind of based on that idea that is a fundamental ethic of all faiths. And we have also made the awareness and edited our own core values to say, treat others as they wish to be treated.
Exactly. Exactly. In fact, also in the book is a 12-step program on how to bring peace to your life. And as many people have gone through 12-step programs for alcoholism, drugs, there's 102 different groups out there that do 12-step. Nothing's there yet about bringing peace. And so I've taken the basic 12-step program and introduced the idea that we can bring peace into our life. We can become peaceful with those people who are not exactly like us. And there are a few people around, I hear.
Well, I love, first of all, I have the book, and if you don't have it, go to Amazon with that link and get it. It's on my Kindle, and I read it over the weekend. I love the 12 steps. My mother had to, that is sorry, that's my cell phone.
I thought it was mine.
Yeah, I didn't turn it off. Yeah, I know we're probably supposed to, but anyway, so where were we? Oh, that my mother actually was in 12-step. She didn't succeed with the 12 steps, but maybe with your 12 steps, it would have been better. I really do believe that peace, world peace starts with each one of us. And so we all need to, reboot with that peace of mind. But maybe we could take the first 3 of your steps, because really I feel like realizing your creator and that you are a creation of that creator is really one. And whether you call that God or higher power or universe, I call him God, but
that's fine.
Your name, but for the creator of all. And then really it is about you. Because if you don't have it, you can't give it.
Yes.
So maybe number 3 is the giving to others, but maybe you just want to kind of run through, Steve, give people a way to get started.
Well, the first thing you said is probably the most important thing, Elaine, It's that you have to know yourself. There's a portion of the book that talks about personalities, and that your personality may be a little bit different than someone else's. In other words, somebody might be more shy. Somebody may be more outspoken. Abigail and I have a wonderful balance where she loves to do the detail work. She loves to get the newsletters out. She loves to make sure the pieces are working. And me, I like to talk. So I get to be the mouthpiece much of the time. Unfortunately, for some people, they grow up seeing someone who is shy and as a bully makes fun of them. Oh, you're a bully, you're no good, you're this and that. Or someone who is very loud and very boisterous. Oh, they're a troublemaker. And once we begin to find out who we are and make the comparison between ourselves and another person, we realize that we can learn from those people and become a better person in our families, at jobs, and in everything that we do. And that has nothing to do with faith. That has to do with humanity. Be human first. Understand your humanity. Understand the details within you, and then reboot yourself to understanding what you could do to make a friend. I know that everyone who is listening to this program has had at least one time in their life found someone they didn't like. Right? Maybe. And at some time in their life have found the ability to forgive that person. Imagine if we could forgive everyone. All right, can't forgive everyone. Imagine if we could forgive most of the people. Well, I don't know about most of them. Maybe we can forgive a few million. Would that be okay? I mean, we got 7.5 billion on the planet. Maybe if we just forgive a few million, would that be good? And I think once we start doing that, doing it for ourselves, we begin to know, you know what? Peace on earth is possible.
Amen to that.
Love it. And I love to be able to teach classes. After we wrote the Interfaith Manual, we wrote the Interfaith Workbook, which gives 40 classes that anyone can use. There's many churches that are using it around the country, where people come together and it's easy. You don't even know how to spell interfaith, but you can, the Interfaith Workbook gives you an agenda and a program to do 40 different classes. If each class was 2 hours, that would be 80 hours of classwork. It's got exercises at the end. Go visit a religious center that's not of your own. Meet somebody and talk with them over a breakfast. Become human. I keep using that word, but when I go back to rebooting, what do we reboot to? We reboot to the basics. If your computer goes bad, you upgrade it to a better computer. You upgrade the programs. You bring in new things that are working better than what you had before. And imagine, maybe I should have said this at the beginning. Imagine your computer working perfectly. Sometimes it doesn't. At least it doesn't for me. It does what it wants to do. But imagine that time when your computer is doing exactly what you want it to do, and you are open to new ideas. And, oh, I didn't know that my PowerPoint can do this. Oh, I can now make this a JPEG and then put it on and then replace it with, oh, wow. And when we do that, we become more able to help others when they're looking to how to fix their computer when it goes down, or their divorce, or their marriage, or their job seeking, or any of the things that we have become strong about came through times when we had trouble, and we learned through that. I think that's really special.
Well, you know, in the book, you talk about personality types, and that's one of my things. I take the different personality types and try to figure out, you know, what my husband is and that kind of stuff, and my stepkids. But it is all a part of the common humanity. And one thing that you say in the book that really caught my attention was that sometimes the differences that we struggle with are a matter of this basic personality type and not about faith at all.
Yes. And it's very unfortunate because we are prone to be judgmental. And if someone is not acting exactly like we would expect them to act, then what's wrong with them? And why can't they be like we were? What was that movie? You know, Bye Bye Birdie. My wife is calling from the other room. She remembered. Bye Bye Birdie said, why can't the kids be like we were, perfect in every way? What's the matter with kids today? Well, kids are finding their own way. And and I don't know how much time we have left, but if I can give you a real quick example, we were counseling a family that was in our church, and the mother was so much a beautiful, amiable, loving, caring person. Her husband was a salesman, and he was up and he was talking, and he'd go and on and on and on. And they had a little boy, and the little boy, because one of the parents was amiable and the other was expressive, took on the third personality of being analytical. And he got into his computer and he would play games, and that's all he could be. Well, then they had a little girl. And when the little girl was born, there was only one personality that she could take on, allowing the others to have their personality. And that was the driver. That was the boss. And so when she came into the family, her favorite word was no. You want to have some pizza? No. Are you hungry? You want ice cream? No. And it didn't matter whether she wanted it or not. It was no, because that gave her power. Well, once we brought the personality styles to the family, the parents understood where they were not taking control. And once they understood that, everything became copacetic, so to speak. You're on.
Oh, sorry about that.
Not wrong.
Yeah, so I know that you have a lot of resources on your website, so I'm going to ask Terry to put the World Interfaith Network and at the Charter for Compassion, put that link into the chat box so that people can go there, get the description, and then link to their website at the World Interfaith Network.
And if you could also put on allfaithcenter.org, that would give you all the books and all the materials if anybody's really interested.
Allfaithcenter.org. Got it. And we have a question in our, okay, so I've got, let's see, so Terry somehow got flipped off, so I will send this to all panelists and attendees, the allfaithcenter.org.
Yes, ma'am.
You got it. And so that's in the chat box now. And a question from the chat box. So Reverend Steve, what is your perspective of the difference between the terms multi-faith, interfaith, and interspiritual?
Beautiful.
Yeah, what do you think about that?
spiritual is something you feel inside. And I believe that for many people, spiritual does not have anything to do with faith, does not have anything to do with religion. It has to do with the feeling that you have with nature, with the world, with being compassionate, if you will, with everything that lives. And I so admire people who feel that and can do that. Many of the other terms are interconnected. They mean pretty much the same thing. In fact, I had somebody when I said faith, they said, well, I have faith, but I don't belong to any church. You can't force me to be I said, no. All I want you to do is believe that I'm going to be nice to you if you'll be nice to me. So a faith has more to do with knowing than sensing. I hope that answers the question, because we can go on for a few hours with just that one wonderful question.
Yeah, exactly. Well, let's narrow it down a little bit to what would you say the difference between interfaith and multi-faith? Since you're like the interfaith guru, so how would you posit that with multi-faith? Are they the same thing?
I believe that some people believe that if all of their faiths are from the, let's say, Christian background, but it's Baptist, it's, it goes into all the different faiths, that they're multi-faith. Well, they are. They're multi-faith. Interfaith includes those that are not just Christian related, but have, as I said, there's over 10,000 distinct religions. We have stoles that we created for the conference. And on the stoles, there's 21 different symbols of faiths. And if you go on the World Interfaith Network site, you'll be able to tie into all that. Because we can't just say, oh, we believe in all faiths and have 3 or 4 symbols on our chest. There's so much more. I want to be part of a bigger fun thing. When I said, what is it about that makes you happy? I really meant something that makes you happy, that you are so excited about, that you want to tell others about. You've got to go to this restaurant. It is it's the greatest food. It's so wonderful. You have to meet these children at this school. They are so beautiful. They are so caring, so loving. Something that you love so much that you want to share with everyone around you. And once you start doing that, just having the people in your neighborhood that are like you, that go to your church, you find out that they're thinking differently. In fact, I will bet right now that no matter what church you go to, if you go to a church, if you're sitting in the pews, once we're allowed to go back, if we're sitting in the pews and we're hearing a sermon, the minister, the pastor, the imam, whatever is giving out words of wisdom, and I can promise you that the person sitting to your right is hearing the same words and hearing it differently. And the person sitting to your left is hearing the same words and hearing it differently. One's going through a health challenge. How am I going to get through? One's having trouble with his wife or family or loved ones, trying to do that. There's so much that we think everyone thinks like us. They don't. And that's okay.
In fact, I think we are learning to appreciate the differences As for me, I love to learn. And that's why I'm at the Charter for Compassion, and that's why I connect with Terry in Australia, and that's why we're connecting with you and all of your connections, because you provide that entry point into a new world of information and hope for our future. I have 5 grandchildren, so
You do?
Yes, yes, and so well, they're all age 7 and under, but nevertheless, we want the world to be rooted in a faith, so that when they grow up, they have an anchor. That knowing life has ups and downs, and it's all good, and it's all meant for our highest and best good. And sometimes when we're headed in the wrong direction, God will prune that tree and bring us back so that we can grow more,
Yes. In fact, in the book, I also mentioned talk zones that are places where you can get together with people just to meet them, just to, find out more about them. And that whether you have, the most obvious one to me is to have a talk zone at the boarding gate at airports. That in that area that's got seating all around, there's nothing that says you should talk to one another. And yet, I'll bet you most of the people listening to your program and believing the things that the Compassion talks about, that most of these people, and there's my wife, she's the one that keeps me going.
I left you a note.
That those people who have met people at the boarding gate and just started a casual conversation have found it to be one of the most amazing times. Who knows what you got in? Oh, you're from Australia. Well, tell me about it. I thought it was, I've never been there. You're from, I've never done that. And it's beautiful, really is beautiful.
Yeah, I think all of humanity is amazing. And, really, when we get into conversations like this that are positive and uplifting and energizing, we just hope to show people by our example that there is peace and love in the world. And so not to lose hope. We all don't have forever to live. And so as we know people who have passed on, I've lost both my parents, but I've been able to speak with them in the spirit, which, I know that there is eternal life, and I know how they're doing and things like that. That's a blessing because I live my life spiritually. And so then I get information spiritually. But there was a point where I was going with this. Oh yes, because as we live our lives by example, that is as teacher. And one of the things that you say in the book, which I really resonate to, because I've spent much of my life volunteering to raise funds for children's charities. You volunteer in a different way, and I thought that it would be great if you could talk about that.
Thank you for that. In 2003, when I had my stroke, I remember laying in bed, not being able to move a finger or a toe, anything on the left side of my body. Everything. And I'm laying in bed on the 3rd day when the doctor came in and said, "Steve, we have good news for you. The clot that formed, that created the stroke, has passed, and you're going to live." I'm laying there going, what do you mean I'm going to live? I can't live like this. And obviously, being a minister, I'm spending all of my time tying into the big guy, if it's a guy, and finding out, God, why? Why me? I use those 2 words, why me? It's what everybody experiences when they have a tough time. Why me? And he says, we're going to send you to the rehab department and they're going to get you together again. And I'm going like, yeah, right. I don't believe it. Now, as bad as the stroke was, my mind was clear. And the first doctor that came in was a physical therapist. And he looked at me and he kept getting closer and he says, I want you to know you have had a stroke. Now, my clear mind said, hey, the guy read my chart. I'm glad he at least knows who he's talking to. And then he continued staring at me saying, and I want you to know there is a 10% chance you will have another one. And in my broken speech, I said to him, then what you're telling me is there's a 90% chance I will never have another one. And this doctor backed off. He said, you know, I have been doing physical therapy for over 15 years, and I have said to every stroke patient exactly what I said to you, but what you have said to me is more accurate. And right then and there, I heard God's voice saying, Steve, this is what you're going through the stroke for. And so a year, 13 months after my stroke, I've started to volunteer in the rehab department at the local hospital. It's been 16 years now. Once a week, I go in and I counsel families and individuals who, like me, thought maybe I'm going to die. I don't know what's happening. And I have been hugely successful in helping people relax a little bit, that you're going to make it. It's going to be okay. And it takes going through a difficult experience, a different event. That experience helps you help someone else who then also goes through that experience. And fortunately enough, 3 times in 16 years, I was told on the second visit to a patient, thank you for having come in, because last week I was going to kill myself. But because I saw you and what you went through, I know that I can make it also.
Exactly, common humanity.
Yes. Good name for a book, Elaine.
It's probably already written. We'll have to Google that one, Steve. So, wow, we have enjoyed so much your being with us, but we have a few minutes left. If there's any other words of wisdom you want to share, I'll turn it over to you, but just a minute or two.
Wow. All I'm asking for people is to believe that we can make it. That as bad as it seems, things are going to happen. Once again, this whole lockdown thing is a growth experience for each one of us to find out more about ourselves, to accept for ourselves that, you know what, it's not that bad. Because I see on TV where people are in the hospital dying, and I have to stay at home and watch old movies on TV. That we are going to get through this. We need to know it. We need to believe it. We need to tell our children. We need to tell our friends. We need to be there to support others, and hopefully they will send the message out. It's all going to be okay. And that's, except for dessert, that's about it.
Thank you, Reverend Steve. We appreciate you being on our call. Reverend Steve Albert from the World Interfaith Network. Go get his book, Reboot to Interfaith, and that's on Amazon. At this time, I'm going to turn this over to Terry, and he will close us in prayer. So thank you.
Thank you, Steve, so much. It's been a very stimulating conversation, and Elaine, as a host, thank you for your shared contribution. There's lots of things happening in this space. We invite you to join us with other webinars that we're doing, to check out the websites that we've shared with you through the chat box, and other resources that are available to continue this really important conversation. Steve, I was really taken by your 10%, 90% kind of conversation with the doctor. Yesterday here, I was doing some education with some doctors, a very impassioned plea about how at the beginning of their careers, if they face their own mortality and the fact that one day they will be patients and dying patients as well, it will help them in terms of their sense of shared humanity and their compassionate care for others. And I was really launched into this conversation, and at the end of it, the facilitator said, so if there's one thing we can take away from what Terry said, if you don't pay attention to your patients, you're likely to have a professional complaint against you. And I thought, he totally missed the point.
Yeah.
But my grandmother and Robert Schuller got it, you know, when they said, anybody can count the seeds in an apple, but only God can count the apples in a seed.
Oh.
And one of the gifts of this interfaith.
May I steal that?
Absolutely. I think it's a Robert Schuller, you know, it's a oldie but a goodie. You know, that this perspective that we bring from, you know, when we open ourselves to other perspectives, to listen for the way in which the Spirit is active, you know, in the stories of other people's lives, in their religious and faith journeys, it opens us up to a different perspective on life that is transcendent and healing, and you know, transformative in so many ways.
Yes.
So as we close, we are going to close with a kind of an act of prayer. You know, I've been playing with this an acronym of aorta. The aorta is that part of our body that exchanges the, you know, the dirty blood with fresh oxygen. And for me, this is around our awareness of, you know, being aware of what's happening around us, of then being open, as you've invited us to do, to be responsive, you know, to listen deeply and to be responsive. And when that happens, there's this wonderful transformation that happens. The magic happens in that kind of space. And as we move on, we're able then to be assertive about the things that we believe. It's not about being aggressive. It's not about pushing anything. It's not proselytizing, but it's to come with a greater sense of our common humanity and our awareness so that we can be compassionate to other people.
Sure.
So Dr. Steve, thank you so much for a very rich and stimulating conversation. I'm greeting you from tomorrow here in Australia. We're already at the 16th of July at 7:58 in the morning. So I can tell you that where you guys are heading is a great new place. And let's open ourselves to be responsive and allow ourselves to be transformed in ever new ways. This is our hope and this is our prayer. And so let it be. Thank you.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Terry. Thank you, everyone. Reverend Steve, Terry Ling from the Australian Compassion Council and the Charter for Compassion. We will see you on our next webinar.
And Terry, here's your breakfast.
Oh, yes. Please share the donuts. All right.
Thank you. Got it.
I'll take a glazed one and a chocolate one for my husband, Tom. He likes the chocolate.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Bye for now. Bye for now.